identified as an issue for a referendum. It's already been a referendum issue. The local election one is another of these areas where, well, it's not really important, is it, because it's not Westminster. So actually the possibility of change is there. And even if what you could manage to win would be that areas decide their own system, would at least give you something for those areas that want to try something different, you know. So I mean, you know, we got that certainly under the devolved system in Scotland. So that's an area to sort of play with. The other one, I was trying to think, you know, that again, you know, well, I'm not sure how people feel about the scenario, but if you were Nick Clegg looking again at sort of coalition government, what would your constitutional demand be this time round? I suppose that's one possibility. The other one would be, what are you going to do with the second chamber of the House of Lords? And to see, you know, if there couldn't be more. The really annoying thing about the House of Lords one is that you've got a lot of people who agree it needs to be totally reformed. It needs to be sort of elected, at least, you know, a significant proportion of it elected, and all those that can agree on a change cannot agree with each other how much change, you know, how much compromise they're prepared to do in order to get some sort of change. So this is exactly another of these things where, because people, you know, the majority want change, they can't agree what the change is, so therefore the status quo wins. And that's another of the things that has to be happening. And I think the part of what needs to happen with that, you were mentioning the People's Constitutional Assembly, those sort of ideas I think becoming really important in terms of actually being able to liberate political parties from some of their thinking. You know, the Charter 88 thing worked quite a chunk on Labour. You know, it needs something else which has some sort of public traction to enable political parties to defrost and sort of move somewhere else on this, I think.
I think one of the key words they were saying was a citizens-led, you know, constitutional convention. We're occupying Runnymede Eco Village, where the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta is coming up. Looks like we're still going to be there. We're having a festival for democracy, like the new Putney debates are going to come and talk about a new agreement for the people and also a constitutional consultation. We'd like to invite you, if it's possible, any time between the 12th and the 15th. I know we've got the Queen and maybe Obama coming or whatever, but we'd love you or anything from the Green Party to come and talk and put your points across. 12th to the 15th of June at Runnymede Eco Village. Check out runnymede.community or Diggers 2012. Can I come back to one thing you mentioned just earlier? You mentioned who buys the election. I think there's an old thing on crime detection. They say follow the money. Now I know from the American election there's some activist stuff put out a while ago that the Koch brothers, they're like these multi-billionaires, and they put a massive amount of money into denying climate change and sponsoring certain political parties, or even both sides. So whoever wins, they've got them in their pockets. If you want to hedge your bet, and if you look at the, you know, on the American side, whoever it was, Obama or the guys running in, the top 10 donators for each of them were like 6 or 7 of the same company, but one of them donated him the first or second, another was third, fourth. Can you say anything about this country, who buys the election, who puts a lot of money in, or what you were alluding to earlier?
I wonder if we can, that's kind of part of tomorrow's day. I wonder if we can, do you want to answer?
Fine, all right, well, give us a very quick one or move on.
Okay. Can we maybe just
fair enough. Just a quick reply on that one to what you were mentioning there, 30 seconds or whatever.
Well, it's also picking up the point that I was making, you know, who it is. I mean, I think the one that has most particularly shocked me recently was the Daily Express editor and £1 million plus to UKIP. I mean, the
Daily Express?
Yeah, which, you know, didn't surprise me in terms of who he was supporting, but that, you know, you give him all that publicity and some money as well, you know, I thought was pretty shocking. I think that certainly there are the media part of it in terms of the intimidation, I think is right. I also think, and it's my personal sort of conspiracy theory, that a lot of the stuff that was run before the last election round MPs' expenses, while, you know, there's a lot of stories within that, a lot of things that you would have objected to, I found it was very interesting that it was coming from the Times and Murdoch, you know, and who is it who has the right to legislate on on media ownership, etc., etc. We've seen it at the European elections. Every time the European elections come, we know what the stories are going to be. And okay, there's some truth in quite a chunk of it, but one of the things you need to do in order to make sure people don't legislate too much about you is discredit the legislators, and then they're all off fighting other battles, aren't they?
Yeah.
So as I say, that's my personal sort of conspiracy theory. Times and Telegraph on that one. There will be others, certainly others with the money in there, and I think it will be interesting to look at not so much necessarily the cash, although there's some very big cash going in. I must declare an interest here in my own party's sort of money coming from Vivienne Westwood. But there's straight donations, but it's also who's giving you stuff in kind. Who's providing a lot of the backup logistics. So I think that's worth looking at. And the question about how you actually finance political parties, I think with the UK, I'm not sure if it's the only place in Western Europe, but one of the few countries in Western Europe anyway that doesn't have sort of state funding in the wider sense. It has it once you're in Westminster to a certain degree. But it's possibly the only one left. I'm not sure about Ireland, but most of the others will have some form of state funding.
Just to say that there's a session on this tomorrow between 2 and 4, which Donoghue's going to be part of because he's obviously quite knowledgeable on that. And
so, what's the session called?
It's called Party Funding and Cash for Peerages, I think. So there's also a guy from the Bureau for Investigative Journalism that uncovered a lot of the secret the donations that they've tried to keep secret. Yeah. And a guy from Oxford University that's looked at the correlation between who gets into the House of Lords and who's giving the donations. So that's tomorrow, 2 till 4. And Julie, you on PR? Do you want the mic? Do you want the mic?
There's a trigger as well. That's the key.
Okay. Yeah, I had a question about Green Party and if you do possibly form an alliance, because I think that's a possibility to form a coalition, because SNP could form, SNP and Plaid Cymru and yourselves all look quite cosy at the debates, which is quite welcome, I thought. And what if SNP and Plaid Cymru and yourselves hold the balance of power? We seem to be doing a lot better than Lib Dems. So if that happens, do you think that's a possibility that you could form a coalition between SNP, Plaid Cymru, Greens and Labour? And if so, but how do you think that would PR be something on the table?
A Rainbow Alliance.
It's a great change from grey.
Yeah, rather than the grey Alliance.
We've said, and let's face it, we would be the very junior sort of part of this, I think. But it wouldn't be a coalition. That's the agreement that we have, that it's not a coalition. It would be the sort of, if you like, support, conditional support for in a confidence vote that then puts presumably Labour in. It won't be the Conservatives. Labour in, and the part of the condition, the one condition that has been agreed between the three parties is actually on Trident. Which would be on effectively the non-renewal of Trident. And there's supposed to be a vote on that next year coming up anyway. And I think, I never thought I'd say it, but it's one of the interesting things that I've heard from Michael Portillo recently, and various others, who are starting to question even the Conservatives the value of Trident in any sort of military sort of defence scenario. Hallelujah. In terms of what it would mean on PR, I don't know if that's been discussed. I would hope that it would be, because I think it would be very powerful to have people making the argument who in a sense are not looking for a majority at Westminster. So therefore this business about the parties, having a lock on a system that got them elected, you begin to sort of shift away from that. These are parties that have been elected under proportional systems, know them, understand them, know the advantages, disadvantages. And of course part of the reason for having a proportional system in Scotland was that it was supposed to mean that there never would be an SNP majority. Voters do these very inconvenient things, they upset these calculations, which good for them. And so I think that then actually gives you a different voice in Parliament, just as it gives you that sort of grouping of parties that actually have a commitment against Trident. It also gives you a grouping of parties that actually have a commitment in favour of proportional representation. What it then means in terms of votes and how you get that moving and where you take it to is a whole different sort of question. But at least it opens up the debate, and it makes people think. It forces the other parties to have to react, to have to sort of okay, why do you want to keep this fossilised system that beyond the fact that it keeps you in power, you hope, but less and less, because part of the argument for having first past the post, this disproportional system, was supposed to be about single party strong government, not good government, but single party strong government. Well, we've seen that go, so that argument for first past the post is no longer valid. So what are the arguments for first past the post that are valid in any sort of way which is not about specific party advantage? And the only thing that's left then is the close geographical connections. But you can get that through other electoral systems. You can get it through STV. You can even get it through the additional member system like we have for London. It still gives you that geographical connection, but you can also have the proportional dimension on top of it. So it's a better system than the existing system. And, while parties are watching their vote share going down, they're really worried about, how many seats the two main parties are actually going to have at this next Parliament. It's a very good time to actually get thinking about, well, what are they going to do that's different, that apart from anything else might actually ensure the survival of their party. It's been, again, not everybody's happy, but in Scotland it's been proportional representation that's helped keep the Conservatives alive north of the border. And they didn't want it introduced.
Dying species.
It'd be interesting to know what their position is on it now, and whether they want to go backwards on proportional representation. Now, how strange. Now they're supporting it, now they've got elected under it. Well,
that may happen to Labour too.
Yeah.
Because Labour now, if they get wiped out, they will get no seats in the next general election unless there's PR in Scotland. If that makes sense. Because they could get 25% of the vote and 0 seats. So that actually might drag Labour over to your far side of the admin. Yeah.
So there's a bit of a stack, I think. Barnaby, are you in the stack?
I'll have to remember what it was actually. It's past the moment. I'll come back.
You're in the stack. So it's Barnaby, I don't know your name. Apologies. I can't hear your name either. And then it's George.
You made a slip earlier, and it made me think of something quite it seems obvious now, but as a sort of PR campaign, as in public relations campaign, you've got one which is, which would you prefer, proportional representation or disproportional representation?
Yeah, nice one.
DPR. PR DPR.
Would more referendums like in Switzerland help with this whole thing? More direct democracy?
In terms of whether more direct democracy would help, I'm not sure. I mean, in terms of it as a principle, then yeah, it's something that should be defended, should be promoted. Whether it actually helps to